Hello, everyone. It is October 14th, 12:10 p.m. We're starting our We the People Meet.org weekly meeting to discuss politics in a safe environment where all opinions are welcome. And today it's Rob Crawley, me, and Kent Bowman, and just continuing to discuss the book we were reading, None Dare Call It Conspiracy, as well as talk about current issues and figure we can start about current issues and maybe start with what you'd like to talk about, Kent, or I can. Which would you prefer?
Go right ahead, Rob. I'm happy to follow your lead on this.
Okay. Well, interestingly enough, I'm going to pull up if I can find it now. I want to pull up an article that I just thought, I'm just going to check the news on Fox News before our meeting and see what happens to be there. And I pulled up State Department employee allegedly removes classified docs, met with Chinese officials, I guess sharing confidential documents that he shouldn't be sharing, and he's getting in trouble about it. And his name was Ashley Tellis. And following our theme of the book None Dare Call It Conspiracy, where a lot of the sinister things that I think go on in this world are from this group. I looked to see if he happened to be a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, the person getting in trouble for this, and he does. Ashley Tellis, and like I mentioned before, I've been checking. I've kind of made it a habit to see when I think something's kind of suspicious. Are they a member of the Council on Foreign Relations? Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't, but a surprisingly amount of the time they are. And so just happened to be the front page of Fox News, Ashley Tellis getting in trouble for sharing secrets with the Chinese. I haven't looked at the details. I just barely saw that, but I just wanted to mention that these types of things happen a lot. Here's the article. It was up here before when I looked at it, um, where a lot of the sinister things that do happen in the world come from this group and never get chastened by the group. I believe it's actually in line with what they're trying to accomplish to weaken the United States. So that doesn't surprise me. But anyway, that I thought I would bring that up. I keep the membership roster on my saved list, and so anytime a news article comes up, I like to see who's part of it and who's not, and it's pretty consistent in that a lot
So
of
Rob,
it.
is it kind of like, is the CFP
CFR.
or CFR,
Mhm.
is it like once a member, always a member? Like, is he a current member of it?
Pretty much. Yeah, he is a current member of it.
Okay.
There's 5,000 current members or so. If they die, they are taken off the list. So they're living members. And yeah, once you become a member, it's rare to become not a member.
Hmm.
And it's by invitation only. So they have to make sure that you're in line with their goals and that you're not going to rat them out, and they have their meetings are private. They're not allowed to be You're not allowed to record or anything like that in their meetings. And they basically are the who's who in politics throughout the last 70 years. um, this group, if you click on anyone, just randomly choose one, you'll find that they have some major role. Used to be able to, you could click on them and you'd see what their titles are. Um, I don't think they have that anymore. That's interesting. Um, but yeah, they all have major roles that affect public opinion, news, politics, industry, banking, uh, 5,000 people where, if there's a goal of the Council on Foreign Relations, it'll happen almost overnight that the whole entire world is saying the same thing. So if you can tell basically what the CFR is pushing for by what every single news station is focusing on. Um, it's interesting over the years how I've been able to see that. But anyway, so that was kind of not going to be my topic today, but just something that popped up. But it is interesting. You sent me an article about how China is dealing with the tariffs and how they're getting less and less reliant on the United States. I thought that was an interesting article. We could start there too. Um,
Yeah, That's a fine topic for me.
I'd like to pull that up if I can find it. I know I found it. Let me see if I can find it real quick, but maybe you could start talking about it and I'll find it.
Well, basically, what the article was describing was that um, China China is having to rely less and less on exports to the United States.
Hmm.
So, obviously those exports have decreased dramatically since the tariff discussion of several months ago.
Hmm.
And so one would think, well, you would think that maybe exports overall from China would be way down if exports to the US are way down.
Hmm.
But in reality, they're way up. So
Yeah.
they have redirected their exports to other parts of the world. And I think uh, I'll I'll have to pull up the article too to get the percentages, but
Here it is. China's ex. Oh, I forgot, but I'm not sharing anymore. Let me share
yeah,
again.
thank you.
Oh, I wasn't even sharing when I thought I was sharing the whole time there. So let me do that. Oh, here we go. Share, and I was highlighting China's exports surged 8.3% in September, their fastest pace in months, even as the shipments to the US fell 27%. So far from being crippled by tariffs, Beijing appears to be quietly rerouting its economy around them. Yeah, I can
Yeah,
see.
and I think and it mentions in there somewhere, there's the three areas that have picked up the slack from the U.S. Europe was one.
Uh-huh.
Let's see if I can if you pull it up there. Um,
Outside, let's see, China.
so
Well, while you're looking at that, I will tell you that I consult with a lot of companies, and one of them does export a lot from China. And when these tariffs hit, they just had to stop shipping product from China, and then you start short shipping product um, to your retailers that you're supposed to be supplying, and sales go down, and it causes a lot of problems for local companies, and they started looking at other places to route some of their product to. Um, Maybe have it shipped from China to these other companies so they could buy it from these other companies so it doesn't have the tariffs when it comes across the United States, that kind of thing. Or just have it manufactured in other places entirely because the product, you can't sell it for 100% tariffs. You're not you're
right,
not you're not going to get product sold that way at all when your cost is double. So basically you have to weather out the storm, see if you can sell your current inventory and hurry and buy more when the tariffs go down. Um, and so, yeah, it really does hurt a lot of local businesses, a lot of US based businesses in the short term. And the automatic adjusting way is to go to another country and see if you can get it in the same price or close to the same price somewhere else. That takes time. So it is
yep.
kind of painful.
Well, and even just, a lot of times goods may come from one hemisphere to the other
Hmm.
through a particular port, and then they might ultimately get sold elsewhere in that hemisphere. So another point that was being made in this article was the port of Los Angeles a lot of times would receive a lot of goods, and then
Hmm.
those might be sold to companies in Canada or Mexico, or consumers in Canada or Mexico. And
Yeah.
now a lot of that activity is going through Vietnam, Indonesia. Where was the other thing? Through Vietnam, Malaysia, and Mexico before reaching their end buyers, um, and eroding Washington's reach. And I think one of the things that was this article, I think, was trying to get at was a lot of times, the U.S. could influence other countries by, blockades or sanctions or restrictions and so forth. But if the goods aren't flowing through the U.S. as much as they used to, or if those outside countries, China as an example, or Russia, are not relying on exporting to the US like they used to, well, a
Mhm.
sanction doesn't have much teeth to it, right?
True. Yep.
So I think part of this was saying this tariff situation could be realigning the overall global trade routes and just actual trading among countries to the point where we may just be another player as opposed to what we used to be as a major influencer.
That's true. Yep. And I would hope if a country gets too bad on human rights that we'd have other countries kind of join with us. You know what I mean? If there's real bad human rights violations that other countries would join in kind of sanctioning a certain country. Did you notice why Donald Trump decided to do this? Raise it back up to 100% tariff in China?
The rationale he gave initially was that China had begun to charge fees to American ships coming into China
Mhm. What
into
I
their
uh,
ports.
There's probably that also, but what I read was the major thing was China's gathering a monopoly on rare earth metals and things that are needed for computer chips and things like that. They would have a monopoly on it that they could control a lot of things that military needs, and they're starting to strong arm other countries into establishing that monopoly, and that's what Donald Trump's waiting for them to kind of back down on that strong arming position of China. That's really what I read pushed him into this. Um, I mean that would make sense to me as a reason you'd want to do a tariff like this. And if they'll change it and stop doing what they're doing, I don't understand exactly how they're doing it, but if they'll stop doing that, I would assume that the tariffs would go back down. And I'm hoping that he's right. I'm hoping that he can influence them to make that change before the companies I work with have another bad few months like they did at the beginning of the year. So,
Well, the only thing that doesn't ring as true with me on that is that that topic has been out there from the very beginning of the discussions on tariffs on China.
uh,
And that was one thing that China fought back with initially. This is several months ago,
yeah,
saying, well, we're not going to allow exports of rare earth materials to the United States.
yeah.
And and so then as those two countries got together and negotiated this, de-escalation,
Mhm.
that took a lot of that down to 30% again. That was part of the agreement was, and I remember reading the article, I don't have it in front of me, but that China had agreed that it would begin selling rare earth materials back to the US.
Mhm.
So it could be that China has reneged on that in some form or fashion, although that article never came out that I ever read that they had.
Uh-huh.
And the other thing that doesn't ring true is again when you go back to that Sunday night, was it
Uh-huh.
when well, let's see.
So,
So the stock market went way down on Friday, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and
And
shut.
then it came back yesterday, and then it went down again this morning, and then kind of recovered a little bit this afternoon, although I'm not sure where it stands now. But so it would have been Thursday night that this message came on True Social from Trump that basically said he was going to increase the tariffs by 100%.
Uh-huh.
And the only thing that the True Social um, document or communication said was it was due to China charging U.S. ships higher fees coming into their ports. So he personally never mentioned the rare earth issue at all as
Uh-huh.
a reason. Now it came out later through his administration, but that wasn't what he was. And he did this at like 1 o'clock in the morning is when he sent out that True Social thing, and
Huh.
that's when the markets just collapsed on Monday or on Friday. Sorry.
Yeah. This
So
is the
those two things don't ring as true to me. And you would think that if China had come out and made a specific change to what they had agreed to, that would have been some pretty big news that
well,
at least I never saw.
this is the first article I read. This is on October 10th. This is the first thing I read when I saw that. And it says President Donald Trump has called off efforts to arrange a meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping and threatened a 100% tariff on China after the country tightened export controls on rare earth minerals this week. Um, that was the first thing I read. So I didn't even know it had something to do with costs going in the ships coming in. And then
Let's see if I
this
can find it.
this article on Fox News talks about the rare earth minerals being really important to our defense supply chain and Tomahawk missiles and um, so I don't know. I haven't really heard the other issue, but if Trump said it on Truth Social, I'm sure that's an important part of it too.
Let's see here if I can find it.
These eyes blink. These eyes blink. As these eyes
I
help
don't
those
want the
eyes.
commercials. Let's see if I can get rid of those.
Yeah, two pairs of glasses.
I got rid of the commercial. Um, Trump calls Xi's rare earth movement a bad moment. Why it matters for U.S. national security and China ties. Rare earth elements are used in magnets found in F-35 fighter jets and other defense technologies. So sometimes there's one reason that's put out there and another reason that really is the reason, and I don't know which of those it is or if it's both of those issues or but the
Yeah,
whole
so here I can't find the one I'm looking for, but this is an article from Reuters
uh-huh,
that says China. This was on October 13th,
uh-huh.
6 p.m. China begins charging port fees for U.S. ships, exempts China-built ones. So
Oh,
China's
yeah.
officials started collecting special port fees from the U.S.-owned, operated, or built, or flagged vessels on Tuesday, but said Chinese-built ships would be exempted from the levies, according to the state broadcaster CTV.
They
Um,
started doing that today, huh?
well, they announced it, or at least they
Oh, they announced it last week. So I pulled up
last
the same
week.
article that you're mentioning. I pulled it up so we can read it as we go.
Yeah, so it says here China's transport ministry announced last week that it would slap the new port fees as a countermeasure to US port fees on China linked ships starting the same day.
Oh, so this might be more in response to that, just saying, hey, we're going to match it. We're going to match your port fees.
Yep. And then here it goes. Then following the announcement, okay, so this is last week, China
Uh-huh.
makes the announcement. Then following the announcement, US President Donald Trump said he was raising tariffs on Chinese imports to 100% from November 1 and imposing export controls on critical software in reprisal for China expanding its export limits on rare earth minerals.
Okay. So yeah, so it sounds like the rare earth minerals is what Donald Trump is saying his tariff fee was for it, but then he's responding to getting higher port fees when China put higher port fees. It sounds like to me.
But again, this is what troubles me, Rob, is
Uh,
China didn't increase the port fees on US ships until we did it to their ships. We did it first, then China reacted. Okay. And and so and again, if you go back, we'll have to find it on when we're not on the clock here, but when you go
mhm.
back to his
So
True Social, he
you're
was
right,
the
you're
one
right. It says
specific.
I didn't read that right the first time. China announced that it would slap the new port fees as a countermeasure to US port fees. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yep, I missed that part. Maybe I got it now.
And so it's I mean, look, I believe in our country. I want us to succeed. Obviously, I
Uh-huh.
live here, but you look at so many of these situations where we we are the aggressor in many of these things, even with Iran. You go back to the situations in Iran with, where we had a signed agreement, our country with their country, about, they can't have uranium at the levels necessary to create nuclear bombs. And we're the ones that pulled out of that agreement, not them,
When was that we pulled out?
of the nuclear arrangement where they agreed not to have uranium levels high enough to create bombs
Yeah. When did we pull out of that one?
when Trump came into office.
So he pulled out right after coming into office out of that.
Yep, yep.
Huh.
The first time, his first,
Oh, many years ago. Okay, gotcha. Yep.
yeah, and then, similarly to, the situation again in Iran where, Trump was carrying out negotiations with Iran to, with respect to nuclear weapons and interaction with Israel, and then during the time frame, the actual time frame when we're supposed to be negotiating that very week, then we carry out the bombing of those three sites in Iran. Um, and so if you take off the colors, if you're a BYU fan or a Utah fan, and you just take the person and put him, in the stands with no color, and you don't know which school he's from,
Uh-huh.
and you just look at what he says or what he does, many times we are the ones creating the issues.
Mhm.
Even when I was in Iran in 1975 to 1977, and the situation happened shortly thereafter where our embassy people were taken hostage and so forth. And I worked on that project, by the way, for the U.S. government.
Wow.
A lot of what happened, um, and why the Iranians were so upset, was because of the U.S.'s interference in their internal, government activities, that went back, 10 or 15 years, where you had CIA operatives, having impact on who was being elected and so forth.
Mhm.
And so, I think sometimes we say, well, they're Iranian, so they're bad, and they're American, so they're good. And I think we have to say, we got to hold each other accountable, that we look at what the actions are, and then say what's good or bad. And so, for example, this thing with the rare earths, what is so weird to me about that is Trump announced the negotiation of that with China several months ago when the tariffs went on pause, and
Mhm.
he announced that that was a win, that they had agreed to allow these rare earths to be exported again.
Uh-huh.
So the facts that I'd like to see are, is it really true that China has said we're not going to allow rare earths to be exported?
Yeah.
Because if that's true, hey, that's a national security issue. I agree 100%. We need to react to that. But I wish we would react as opposed to one guy sending out a message at 12 midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning on True Social as to we're going to raise tariffs by 100%. I would wish that he would have advisors around him and look at the pluses and minuses of that step, and then make a considered decision on what to do. It just seems like so much of it is knee jerk that frustrates me.
Oh, I can see that. I can see that. You want to think that people are operating like a business. You don't want the president to just go and make a knee-jerk decision to change everything, have people have to relearn their job, or you want there to be some thought process into it. So I agree with that 100%. The other comment that I want to latch onto a little bit is when you were in other countries, specifically Iran, you saw how the United States would get involved where they didn't need to, and actually to the detriment of Iran. And I've also made it a habit every time I travel, like for instance, this last time I traveled, I went to Seattle a couple weeks ago and had four different Uber drivers. They were all from Africa. And I love to just get to know them. And if the ride's long enough, we start talking about maybe religion or politics and, all those things you're not supposed to talk about with strangers. And I love to do. And I get into it and find out that they do have similar feelings. The U.S. has not helped their country almost. Oh, I've probably had these conversations for the last 20 or 30 years when I travel with people that are from foreign countries. So how has the United States affected your country? And almost always it's like, oh, they're supporting the wrong guy. They're supporting the guy that's not for freedom. They're supporting the guy that's more of a dictator and giving money or support or whatever. And as the leader of the free world, the United States should always be supporting that leader that is trying to promote what we call democracy here or constitutional republic. And it doesn't always end up being that way. And my theory that I've always felt is that it's because a lot of our leaders are not as worried about freedom as they are about preparing the world for a new world order, as George Bush Sr. put it when we went to Iraq, that they're supporting those leaders that will support the New World Order agenda, the CFR agenda, and a lot of times they are CFR members. The State Departments of most, the State Departments, the cabinets of most presidents since about 1950 have all been members of the Council on Foreign Relations, and the original goals of that group were to kind of get a world government together. So anyway, I've seen that over the years, and that's what's kind of confirmed what I've read in this book over time too. But anyway,
Yeah.
now Trump isn't perfect. I didn't like him in the first place. I like a lot of what he's done. I like that he doesn't consult with the same CFR group to decide what to do, like he did his first time in office. He really did, and then he realized that, hey, they're kind of leading me wrong, and kind of tried to get away from that. And now he probably needs more good help from somewhere.
What are your thoughts on the situation in Argentina? I'm curious.
Remind me what's going on there. It seems like I heard something about it, but I can't remember what it is.
Yeah. So that's where the US has now provided a $20 billion support to the Argentinian government
Mhm.
to get out of their financial woes.
Hmm.
So again, and again, I look at that and I go, look, I'm not right or wrong, and I'm usually wrong, but right or wrong, I kind of feel like we need to be if I'm talking to my kids, I'm going to say to them every time, don't make a determination on who you help or don't help based on a person's nationality, color, race, ethnicity. You do whatever you can to help because they are a human being, or as we believe, a child of God,
Right.
and they're all equal. So don't say, well, I'm not going to help him because he's from Canada, or he's from Gaza, or he's from Russia. I'm not going to help him. You need to look at the person and provide that help based on the person, who they
Yeah.
are, not
Yeah.
what
Right.
they look like, right? And so I tend to be a little bit more international oriented than maybe than the way the MAGA group would look at things, where it's, if they're not American, then they come second, third, fourth, or last, or whatever.
Mhm.
But clearly, the part of the campaign from Trump over this thing was America first, make America great again, America first. And so you know, we're going to strip all of US aid out of the world. We're going to not, be as big a part of, NATO or the United Nations or different things like that. We're going to take care of our country first, and then we'll see if there's anything left over. And
Mhm.
again, I'm not in agreement with that, but
Yeah.
I understand that could be a position. And if the majority of the people want that to be the position, then that's why we have elections.
Yeah.
How does that fit in with where we just did $5 million or what was it, 5 million or 5 billion? I can't remember now, but we just pledged this money to Greenland to help their polar bears survive. And we're doing 20 billion to Argentina to kind of build up their government and help their government survive maybe some poor decisions that have been made by the president.
Mhm.
How is that America first would be the question I would ask.
I'm with you on that. I've always been of the opinion that one of the purposes of the government, the Constitution gives no leeway to spend money helping foreign countries out. They should be able to help themselves out if they're being run correctly. And we support countries that are giving freedom to their people and, pull back support for countries that are not giving freedom. So there's a lot of incentive for countries to treat their people with respect, to not kill them if they go against them, to give them freedom of speech. If we support them and give them trade status, don't give high tariffs to those countries, we have a lot of pull in the world to do good without sending our money over to other countries from the government. The government has no right and no role to take our money and decide who the winners and losers are in business or in countries. That's not constitutional. Um, so I disagree with helping out other countries monetarily, but even more so because we are so much in debt ourselves with our debt getting up in the 30 plus trillion dollars. I think I saw that that's over $100,000 per person in the United States. So it's like someone about to declare bankruptcy going and giving around $100 bills to the poor, and they're not going to end up being the ones that pay for it because they've got loans and things like that. That would not be right for that person to act all generous and be taking loan money to them and handing that out to poor people, downtown. That's not right. The people that are giving it out are not the people that are ultimately paying for it. And that's what I feel politicians do all the time is try to give money out to friends or people that they support or regimes they support across the world to get control. Wherever you give money, you get control. And I don't think it's right to do any of that. So I would agree that spending $20 billion to bail out Argentina on the face looks wrong. I haven't dived into why. Interestingly, the Council on Foreign Relations, if you see my screen, it's shared, isn't it? Do you see my shared screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, do you see where it says Council on Foreign Relations here? So I rarely have seen an article by them, so they definitely have an opinion on this. Now I'm curious what that opinion is. Um, Argentina has already gone through more than 50 billion of IMF funds. Despite the assurances of US officials, there is skepticism that Argentina can achieve a different result with this currency swap. So it's a currency swap, is it? Rather than just a donation from the government?
Well, yeah, but the way a currency swap will work is if you're at high risk, right?
Yeah.
That it will just go away. So it's almost worse than a loan.
Huh.
Um,
Yeah, so
you have to,
they're questioning him doing that. I'm questioning him doing that personally. Um, I'm interested to see what I found this really cool website that I might have mentioned last week, that media bias chart. it shows which media has what bias. I'm curious to see where, but Fox News off the far left, CNN mildly or far right, Fox News, Breitbart far right, Reuters more in the middle, Wall Street Journal more in the middle. So anyway, I'd be interested to see what people that support Trump are saying regarding that.
Yeah, yeah.
I
That's
haven't
something we
heard
can
back.
talk about another time too.
Yeah. I did want to quickly share the screens that I thought I was sharing before. When I brought up that this let's see, where is it? This defense coordinator contractor hoarded
Oh,
class
yeah.
documents. So that's what the article looks like. It was the top one for a brief minute, and then the other page that I was sharing before looked like this that I want to show that Ashley Tellis was that person that they were talking about there.
Yeah.
And the Council on Foreign Relations page that just the membership roster just went to, and Ashley Tellis was right there as one of their members. Tellis, Ashley Tellis. So anyway, I wanted to share that before, but um, kind of want to get to the book if you're okay with that. Talk
Yeah, fine.
more of I haven't reread all the way to the end of it yet. I'm on the final chapter, which we're getting to in our discussion anyway. How far have you gotten on your end?
I finished. Yep.
Oh, okay. So you're ahead of me. I think we ended up about right here. That
The team is amazing. I love working with them. Coming into work is a great time. They just make it fun.
I feel so connected.
have to get rid of something because apparently I've got the
It brings out the best.
sorry about the commercial there. Fox News always has commercials pop up. I might do it again. So we ended last time about how all of these yeah, I'm gonna have to. Can you hear the background?
A little bit. Yeah.
There we go. I got rid of it. Good. We were talking about how the power of the CFR is evidenced by those that are members of it, the leaders of different groups that are members of it, and they put together a chart. And then we were talking about how the CFR gained control of both political parties over 50 years ago. And this is back in the 1970s. That's why I say over 50 years ago. And a lot of the key leaders of different parties were part of the CFR. A lot of famous names here on both sides, the Republicans and the Democrats. So throughout my life, because I've known this, I haven't really been completely. I voted Republican a lot of times, but I've never voted Democrat personally, but I voted third party when I can see that the person that's running as the Republican and the person running as the Democrat are both CFR members, then I can't vote for either one because I know they're both part of the same team secretly. They have more loyalty to the CFR than to the American people based on what they're willing to talk about. Have secret meetings with the CFR and not share what was discussed there, and they're kind of on the same team. So I've never voted for a CFR member in my life. George W. Bush Sr. was heavy into the CFR for sure later after this book was written. Um, I wanted to show this too. I haven't shown this to you, but this was a link that I wanted to pop up here. I could. This is just Wikipedia listing members of the Council on Foreign Relations, and it goes through influential members that have been part of the Council on Foreign Relations or are. And
Mhm.
it's just an amazing who's who in business. CEO of Citigroup. I will say too, I looked at the top 10 financial institutions in the world, and it wasn't 5 minutes till I could find one of their top people being a member of this Council on Foreign Relations. Since the founding of the Council on Foreign Relations, their goal was to infiltrate all the groups that influence public opinion in the United States, as well as all major financial services. And this list, notable council members list, goes on and on and on and on and on. Anthony Blinken, Tom Brokaw. Um, but if you look at this list on Wikipedia, it is an amazing who's who. James Baker, Secretary of State, throughout the years of people that have been part of it. And I don't know, Kent, have you ever seen that montage of videos of the different news anchors throughout the country all saying word for word the same thing? Did you ever see that montage?
I
It
don't
was,
think so.
it was going around Facebook. It was when the CFR wanted everyone to believe a certain thing. Someone took a montage of all of these anchors throughout the United States saying word for word the same thing. It was very politically driven, but it was word for word the same thing. Didn't matter if it was ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, all the different news agencies, and every one of them was repeating the same politically driven message. I think they learned their lesson to not have everyone read the same thing, but it all came from the same place because all of these major news outlets are controlled by CFR members.
What was the message? Do you remember?
I can't remember. I think I'll put a note to look for that for our next meeting.
Yeah.
I think I can find it again. I might have saved it. I like saving things like that in case I have to pull them up. Um, but yeah, it was pretty interesting. But you don't have to have the exact same wording because the same message often will be pushed out to everybody. Donald Blinken, Alan Blinken, Anthony Blinken. Um, it's amazing that Bill Clinton was part of it, Chelsea Clinton, George Clooney. Um, and I was watching a meeting with sorry, a podcast by Tucker Carlson one time, and this lady was on it. I might find it and send it to you sometime. But the lady was on it. She was very influential, had a government position, and she went against the establishment by saying no to an invitation to the Council on Foreign Relations. And she describes how that went down, how just it was a secret organization, and she's like, I don't want to pledge my loyalty to a secret organization. And the person asking her was shocked, saying, "You realize what this will do to your career? You realize that saying no to the Council on Foreign Relations to become a member will bankrupt your career." And she said, "I'll take my chances." And she was high up in the U.S. government at the time. But I'll find that because it's really interesting. Very few
Yeah.
people expose them in that way because most people say yes because it basically fast tracks their career if they become a member. They're given special cabinet positions, special positions in cush jobs, high paying cush jobs. But they have to go along with the agenda of the Council on Foreign Relations, or else they'll be censored. Um, but yeah, it's an amazing list. It's
Is there anybody on the list currently uh, in the Trump administration?
I'm sure there is. He kept getting David Petraeus was part of it. He kept getting sideswiped by Council on Foreign Relations members in his first presidency, and he'd fire him. And then another one would sideswipe him, and he'd fire him, and he became the firing president, right? And most of them were Council on Foreign Relations going against his commands or his, directions. They worked for him. He was their boss. And the Council on Foreign Relations have more loyalty to the Council on Foreign Relations than the American people. Their boss is the president because there's a whole underworking. The CIA and the FBI were working to make sure that Trump didn't get reelected under Trump during his first presidency. They were hiding information about the laptop of Hunter Biden and doing everything they could to make sure that information didn't get out because it would help get him reelected. There's a whole underpinning of power as part of this group that overcomes the president's power many times.
But there's none in the current administration, right?
Oh, I bet there is. I'm not sure. I'm not sure he has cleaned house completely of count. I don't know if he went through the whole list and said, "I'm going to get rid of anyone on the Council on Foreign Relations." I'm sure he didn't do that. The first time as president, I don't think he had any idea that that's why he was being undercut. But I have not. None of the high up positions are part of it. I've checked that. So if you see any of the top positions he's called are not part of it, that's why it's going against all the previous history. Our country is not being completely run by this group anymore, which I mentioned. I watched a Council on Foreign Relations meeting the other day, how they were bemoaning that fact that the US is not on the same tracks it's always been. That's because the president's not a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, and it's his directors are not at this time. So he's doing what he feels best for the country, not what he's told to do. Biden even admitted he called the Council on Foreign Relations leader his boss. I don't know if he meant to do that, but he said, "We all know I report to you," is what he said to the leader of the Council on Foreign Relations. And I don't think he was kidding. The guy laughed it off, but I think he was completely honest. And Hillary Clinton said the same thing to a Council on Foreign Relations group one time. We all know that you're the ones I report to.
Do you think there'd be a reason
Hmm.
why Trump wouldn't call out the Council on Foreign Relations?
I don't know. It's interesting. I will tell you, the people that do get shut down pretty quick usually. There was a congressman, and I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but there was a congressman named Larry McDonald that started calling out the Council on Foreign Relations many years ago. And people will say it's coincidence. I don't believe it is. He was supposed to go into the eastern countries. I can't remember which one on a trip for the U.S. And the word I got, because he was part of the group that my dad was part of, named the John Birch Society. He had joined that group and was trying to expose the Council on Foreign Relations, and he was a congressman that was very respected and started getting people familiar with the Council on Foreign Relations. Anyway, two CIA looking guys grabbed kind of both arms and said, "You're going on a different plane." Put him on the plane that was hijacked. It was KAL 007 back around 1980s. He was put on that plane that was hijacked and crashed into the sea of it was the sea in between Japan and China. And supposedly everyone on it died. But what happened is no bodies washed ashore. A lot of clothes did, but no bodies washed ashore there. And the word that came from Russian concentration camps is a lot of these people ended up in Russian concentration camps, including Larry McDonald, and that he had been tortured so much that he was kind of insane, is what I heard
Hmm.
from reliable sources from Russian concentration camps, that he was still alive and had been tortured a lot of his life after that. So that's what happened to him. He was an influential person that started trying to out them. Um, Many people say it's coincidence. I don't think it was. His wife got on the news and said they got him because she knew that he'd been being threatened because he was trying to expose this group. And her first comment as she was crying was they got him. And
Wow.
all of us knew who she was talking about. He was on the board of directors of my dad's company that he worked for, the John Birch Society.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, if you go against them, it's very damaging to your career. If you have aspirations in government, then it can shut that down. So most people don't. Jonathan Soros, George Soros's son. George Soros was on the board for many years. He helped start the European Council on Foreign Relations, and he's funded Antifa and Black Lives Matter and all the groups that you see out there causing chaos on the streets are really with his billions of dollars he's put into them. Um, Clinton's, Bush's, and it's surprising. People think, okay, it's a Democratic thing, not a Republican thing. No, it's both parties. It's very powerful. So anyway, that's all the time we have, and I have a meeting at 1, but we
Yeah.
pick up next week.
Let's do it again next week. Sounds great.
Okay, thanks, Ken.
Thank you, Rob.
Yep.
Have a great
good
week.
rest of
See
your
ya.
day. Yep. See ya.